let's look back at what you left behind. If you've had a very full, successful career, there may have been things in your childhood. You may have been playing an instrument. You may have loved acting. You may have liked teaching and helping out in your kids' schools, but all of that got put behind you because you were working and you were defining yourself by your work. Well, now's the time to look at some of those things you left behind and say, maybe I want to do that now.
Are you ready for a successful retirement? We're addressing the topics facing today's retirees. Welcome to Retire with Ryan. Now here's your host, Ryan Morrissey.
Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 103. This week, I'm joined by a special guest, Wendy Green. Welcome, Wendy.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, me too. And this week, most weeks I'm talking about the financial aspect of retirement, planning for retirement, right? But now Wendy's here to talk about what you do when you retire, right? How do you manage the extra time that you have? How do you find a purpose if your purpose was really tied into your work? So that's what she's here to help talk about. So Wendy, tell the listeners a little bit about your background.
Sure. Most of my career was in learning and development in the corporate world. I started out with technology training because I have a computer science degree, then went into performance reviews and leadership development and those kinds of things, and certified as a life coach. And, in corporate America, right, every time there's a downturn, well, we don't need training anymore. So you get laid off.
First thing to get cut.
First thing to get cut. So pandemic hits, and again, corporate training, we don't need anymore. So at this point, I was more prepared. I was 66. I felt like I had fairly good financial security. I had Medicare, so it wasn't like, oh no, I can't survive. But emotionally, I had been working with clients over the last several years about preparing for retirement. So I knew people needed to feel relevant. We needed to feel like we still mattered, especially with the pandemic, Ryan. I mean, people were locked in at home, and, how do you still feel meaningful and relevant? You can't even get outside and play with your friends. So I decided to start my own show called Hey Boomer. And truthfully, it was in response to the Okay Boomer thing that was out there that was saying, we caused all the problems. I was like, no, we have a lot of the solutions that have been involved in trying to make things better since the 60s. And now is the time to really do it. So I put together this program to help people start to feel good about themselves again and good about what the next 20 to 30 years means.
Sure. So what are some of the things that people discover, when they start to go through this process that maybe they weren't aware of?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because, I'm sure you hear this with your clients all the time. It's like, 6 more months and I'm done, and like, yeah, financially, you're in good shape. You're ready. But what are you going to do every day when you don't have someplace you have to be and nobody that you're responsible for and nobody to do things for you, right? If you've been an executive, you were used to assigning tasks, and now you've got to look around and assign your own things to do. And I have found that it usually, there's this honeymoon period, okay? Those first 6 weeks or so, and I'm playing golf, I'm going to the gym, I'm having lunch with friends, and then you realize, wait, my friends are still working, so they can't always go with me, and I can only play so much golf. And I've cleaned out all my closets. And now what am I going to do? And so typically it takes 18 months to almost 2 years before people kind of get their feet under them again. And what I help you do is to think about, why take that long, right? We have probably another 20, 30, maybe good years. And so let's make the best of it. So let's look at the roles that you have been playing and what still serves you and what do you want to leave behind. Not having a schedule can be very difficult for people that are used to having a schedule. And so let's put together some ideas. Let's look back at what you left behind. If you've had a very full, successful career, there may have been things in your childhood. You may have been playing an instrument. You may have loved acting. You may have liked teaching and helping out in your kids' schools, but all of that got put behind you because you were working and you were defining yourself by your work. Well, now's the time to look at some of those things you left behind and say, maybe I want to do that now. And you can. And that's the mind shift, right? Because so many of us start out saying, well, I'm too old. I can't take up acting again. I mean, that would be crazy. What would my friends say? And everybody would think I'm nuts. Why? If that's what makes you feel passionate, go for it. Because if you don't do it today, tomorrow's going to be another day. If you don't do it tomorrow, then the next day is going to, and suddenly, you're at that age where you're saying, I wish I had.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest part of doing anything, right, is getting started. For me, getting to the gym, I don't like going to the gym, but if I can just get there, that's probably like 90% of the battle because I'm already there. So I'm going to do what I need to do, but there's a lot of ways to procrastinate to not get there.
Right. And going to the gym is a good example because going to the gym right now in your mind is something you have to do because it's going to make you healthy and you're going to feel better. But in this stage of our lives, it's going to the gym because you want to. And why do you want to? And maybe the gym isn't where you want to get your exercise. A lot of people are playing pickleball. Some people like to swim. What if you just walk dogs? Find what you enjoy. That's what's the value of this age, but do it. Like you said, don't put it off. But you're less likely to put it off, Ryan, if you're happy about why you're doing it.
Well, that's true. I mean, for me, it's a time constraint, right? I mean, I've got 2 young children. I work full time, so it's all right. Can I get, a couple days a week, a good exercise in? And yeah, I'd rather go walk dogs or walk on the beach or something, but I don't have the time to get a 2-3 hour walk in. So I try to crunch it in there. But I guess when you are retired, you do have the time, like you said. So
you do have the time. And, it's really interesting too, because the word retire means to withdraw. Well, I don't know many people in my age group who want to withdraw from life and sit on the couch and become a couch potato. So your kids are going to be grown one day. You're not going to be working full time one day. And then what?
Yeah. For me, that would be golf. But I think that gets old. I mean, like you said, playing golf 4 or 5 times a week. I mean, first of all, the older you get, it starts to get tiring. And then if you're not playing well or not enjoying it, it's like, well, why am I even doing this, spending all this time doing something like that?
Yeah. And some of that is social, right? Because it's important. It's important at this age that we keep up our social involvement. Loneliness is a big scourge of older people. So golf is a great way to stay socially involved with people, but you might do it in a different way. Again, you're probably under a time constraint. Okay, I've got 3 hours here on Saturday. Maybe when you're 70, you say, well, I'll shoot 9 holes and then I'll go into the club and have lunch.
Yeah. No, very true.
So it's different, but it's still doing something.
Well, it's good. Yeah. So what are, looking around with some of my clients who I've worked with and helped get to retirement, I see some of the common themes are, if they happen to have grandchildren, right? Taking care of their grandchildren a couple days a week. It could be like volunteering, right, with their church or just their community, doing some traveling. I mean, traveling, unfortunately, due to COVID, kind of got put on the back burner for a lot of people because you couldn't really travel internationally, right? You had a quarantine and people were worried to do that. So it seems like now people are starting to do that a little bit more, which is good. Is that what you see, or do you see some other common themes that people are pursuing?
So it's interesting that that's the themes that you see because that is the early retirement view, right? Like, oh, I'll get more time with my grandkids. We'll travel. We'll do those things. I think a lot of people, once they get into weeks and months, it's also about their meaning. Why am I here? What's my purpose? So when they look at a volunteer opportunity, they also look at how that fulfills a sense of meaning for them. So I have a client that she was a children's minister. She loved that, passionate about that, but she always felt like she wanted to do some work for the homeless community and, making sure that they were safe and they had food and those kinds of things. And so during her transition of what am I going to do next, she has now found a place where she's working, volunteering with homeless community. And she's really building relationships. The people that we see on the sidewalk and walk by and go, I don't really see you. She sees them and she's learning about a relationship with them. I had another client. She had been a teacher for special ed children. And, there's a huge sense of purpose and meaning in that. And when she retired, she was really retired for a couple of years before she reached out to me. And she says, I just don't know what to do with myself. I've always had a plan. Now I don't have a plan. And I cook, I grow my little garden, but I don't know what to do. So total surprise to both of us. She realized that she had always been very creative and she decided she wanted to get into puppetry. She now makes puppets. She uses puppets to work with children. So she's still working with children, but she's now found a new purpose. So that's a lot of what I see of people trying to find what is my reason for being here? What's going to give me fulfillment and what's the legacy I'm going to leave?
Sure. You bring up a good point with legacy. I guess people think about that at different phases in life, right? Maybe think about it a lot or not at all.
Well, and I think a lot of us, when we talk to our financial planners, we think about our legacy as how much money am I going to be able to leave for my kids or my grandkids, and so they'll remember me and be so grateful that I helped with college or gave them something to
buy their first house, maybe.
Right. But how amazing to also leave them a role model of what the next 20, 30 years after 60 can look like. And it's more than what we remember our grandparents looking like.
Yeah, there's definitely, you bring up the change. I mean, there's a change. I mean, I feel like grandparents today are a lot more involved in their grandchildren's lives maybe than they were 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, both my sets of grandparents, I don't remember them coming to many activities and sporting events. They were off doing what they were doing. And it's changed a lot, which is good, maybe for both parties.
Oh, yeah. And I think, when I think back to my grandparents, I mean, they were old when they were my age, right? They were old. It just was different. My son was kidding me the other day. He lives in Nashville and they went to the Bluebird Cafe, which is a place I've wanted to go and haven't been yet. And he talked about all of the people there in their short shorts and their cowboy boots. And I said, I love my cowboy boots, but summer cowboy boots. And he said, Mom, you don't wear those Daisy Dukes. And I was like, no, but I could still wear my short skirts and cowboy boots. I could be a hot mama. He goes, well, maybe a hot grandma. I'm like, there you go. I will own that. And so that's what's different. Like my grandmother in cowboy boots. Oh, never happening. But my generation, the boomer generation, let's give it a name. We're still young. We still have a lot of life left to live. I think it's, getting older does not mean decaying. Getting older is not a disease. It's a natural part of life. And we can choose to embrace it and live it, or we can choose to say, oh, I'm too old. I'm too old. And how sad is that? Because you're really not.
No, it is for sure. I guess maybe part of it's a mindset change, but also just health changes as well, as people are maybe taking better care of themselves. Maybe there's better medications or just better diagnosis and allowing people to be more active and also live longer. I mean, we know that life expectancy has increased over the last 30, 40 years. I don't know how long, maybe 4 to 5 years, right, on average or something like that, I would guess, but I could be wrong.
Oh, it's increased tremendously. But if you're 60, the life expectancy for women is, I think, 80 or 85. So that's a long time. And even if we're in good financial shape, a lot of us want to still be earning some money. So I talk to a lot of people that when they reinvent themselves in their next career, they are reinventing into something they love doing, like I'm doing, So I'm always been in training and development and coaching. Well, now I'm doing podcasting. Who would have thought that at this point in my life, I'd be a podcaster, and I'm still a coach, and I'm still loving getting up in the morning and living my life. I'm not ready to say I'm done. And hopefully when I'm done, I just close my eyes and that's that. But, I know a lot of people, Ryan, myself included, that things change. There's a little arthritis, there's a few more aches and pains. And so you just change the way you do things. I'm going on a hiking trip to Glacier National Park here in a couple of weeks. I won't climb the highest peak, but I'm going to hike.
Is that in Alaska?
It's Montana.
Oh, in Montana. Okay. I didn't know where it was.
Yeah. So that's my whole thing is, I always end my show by saying you are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. And I completely believe that. You are never too old. Even when you feel like you can't get up out of bed anymore, it is a mindset, Ryan. And you still can find meaning and purpose in your life and feel like you are living a fulfilling life.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, I teach an adult education class on retirement planning. The first part is about goal setting. And I think that's important for everyone to have goals. I talk about short-term goals and long-term goals, maybe having like a quarterly goal that you're trying to accomplish, because sometimes it can be overwhelming if you don't quantify the time frame that you're looking to do something, and then maybe like a 3 to 5 year goal or something like that, a more longer term.
Yeah. And I work with my clients, in my What's Next program to set a 6-month and a 1-year vision and goal. And we don't just do that. I mean, we walk through looking at our roles and what's our perceptions, and there's an assessment and, all of this to try and give you more insight looking back at your whole life story. And then there's an accountability to it. So I promise you that I'm going to check in with you every few months and say, how you doing on that? Are you reaching those goals? And because we forget, right? We get involved in other things. But I think it is important to have something you're reaching for, like you said, to have those short-term and longer-term goals, even as we age.
Yeah, very true. So if people want to find your podcast, where can they do that?
So it's Hey Boomer is the name of the podcast. It's live every Monday on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And it's also all of the podcast channels that you can subscribe to. And there's a webpage, heyboomer.biz, B-I-Z, where you can find the coaching program. You can get links to all of the different podcasts and shows. So, yeah. And the blogs. Oh, I blog also.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. That's great stuff. Well, thank you very much, Wendy, for coming on, talking about the next phase of life in retirement and giving us some wisdom on that topic.
Thank you, Ryan. It's been a pleasure, and I hope it's been helpful.
Thanks for listening. And if you're enjoying these podcasts, I would greatly appreciate if you could take out your iPhone and find the Apple Podcast app and search for Retire with Ryan and leave me a 5-star review with a comment as to how you've benefited from listening to this podcast. Have a great week, and I look forward to talking to you next Wednesday. Take care.
You should consult a financial advisor familiar with your specific circumstances before you make any financial decisions. Nothing in this broadcast constitutes a solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Any mention of rates of return are historical or hypothetical in nature and are not a guarantee of future returns. Ryan Morrissey, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Morrissey Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor.